Another Friday, another movie review, ladies and gentlemen. I am JoeLumb. Last week I covered Stephen King's Silver Bullet, based on the novel Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King. Today I'm doing another Stephen King film, based on the 1979 novel. It's called The Dead Zone, starring Christopher Walken. When you're done watching this video, you can go back and watch my previous movie reviews in the playlist. It's in the description box. And now, on with the video. The Dead Zone is a 1983 American sci-fi thriller directed by David Cronenberg. The screenplay was done by Jeffrey Boehm and is based on the 1979 novel of the same name, which of course is The Dead Zone, written by Stephen King. The film stars Christopher Walken, Tom Skerritt, and Martin Sheen, just to name a few. Walken plays a schoolteacher by the name of Johnny Smith, who awakens from a coma to find he has psychic powers. The film received positive reviews. The novel was also inspired by a television series of the same name in the early 2000s, starring Anthony Michael Hall, the pilot episode of which borrowed the same ideas and changes used in the original film. When it came down to development, after King's novel was released in '79, Lorimar Film Entertainment began to develop a film adaptation. Producer Carol Baum gave the book to screenwriter Jeffrey Boehm and asked him to write a screenplay. "I thought it had great possibilities and agreed to do it," said Boehm. He developed the script with director Stanley Donen, who left the project before the film had reached production at Lorimar. Boehm completed his first draft for the film on the same day as Ronald Reagan's election as president. Wow. Lorimar eventually closed its film division after a series of box office failures, and soon after, producer Dino De Laurentiis bought the rights to The Dead Zone. He initially disliked Boehm's screenplay and asked King to adapt his own novel. De Laurentiis then reportedly rejected King's script as involved and convoluted. However, David Cronenberg, who ultimately directed the film, said he was the one who decided not to use the script, finding it needlessly brutal. De Laurentiis commissioned another script from another writer, whose name I can't even pronounce, but rejected it and returned to Boehm. Cronenberg later questioned the quality of the script De Laurentiis read, as it was initially written in Polish, translated to English, and then translated to Italian. The film was finally back on track to be made when De Laurentiis hired producer Deborah Hill to work with Cronenberg and Boehm. Cronenberg initially rejected De Laurentiis' offer to direct the film, but accepted the position after meeting Deborah Hill. Cronenberg received 5 scripts for the film, including one from King, which he described as the worst one by far, although Cronenberg did not write Fast Company. He was involved in the writing process and made edits during film. The Dead Zone was his first film in which he did not have any involvement in writing the script. It was also his first film that didn't have any Canadian content. Boehm abandoned King's parallel story structure for the Dead Zone screenplay, turning the plot into separate episodes. Boehm told writer Tim Lucas in 1983, "King's book is longer than it needed to be. The novel sprawls and it's episodic. What it did was use the episodic quality because I saw The Dead Zone as a triptych." His script was revised and condensed 4 times by Cronenberg, who eliminated large portions of the novel's story, including plot points about Johnny Smith having a brain tumor. Cronenberg, Boehm, and Hill had script meetings to revise the screenplay page by page. Boehm's triptych in the screenplay surrounds the 3 acts: the introduction of Johnny Smith before his car accident and after he awakens from a coma, the story about Smith assisting the sheriff in tracking down the Castle Rock killer, and finally deciding to confront the politician Stilson. Boehm said he enjoyed writing character development for Smith, having him struggle with the responsibility of his psychic abilities. Blah, blah, blah. Boehm submitted the final draft of the screenplay on November 8th, 1982. Bohm stated that Donen wanted the film to be told from an outside point of view, while Cronenberg wanted it from Johnny's perspective. King is reported to have told Cronenberg that the changes that the director and Bohm made to the story improved and intensified the power of the narrative. Before Christopher Walken was cast as Johnny Smith, Bill Murray was considered for the role, as it was King's first choice. Cronenberg initially wanted Nicholas Campbell to play Johnny, but the director wound up casting him as the Castle Rock killer instead. Cronenberg also wanted Hal Holbrook to play Sheriff Bannerman, but De Laurentiis objected. Shooting for the film began in January of '83 and took place in the Greater Toronto Area and the regional municipality of Niagara of Cronenberg's native Ontario, Canada. The so-called Screaming Tunnel, located in nearby Niagara Falls, Ontario, was also used as a backdrop for one scene. The gazebo was built by the film crew and donated to the Niagara-on-the-Lake. It was Cronenberg's first film to utilize stereophonic sound. The music soundtrack, composed by Michael Kamen, was recorded by the National Philharmonic Orchestra, London, at the famous EMI Abbey Road Studios. Michael Kamen conducted the recording sessions. The orchestra was conducted and led by Sidney Sachs. This is the only Cronenberg film since The Brood, 1979, for which Howard Shore was not the composer. After a headache following a ride on a roller coaster in Castle Rock, Maine, school teacher Johnny Smith politely declines when his girlfriend Sarah asks if he wants to spend the night with her. As he drives home through the stormy weather, he has a car accident that leaves him in a coma. He awakens under the care of neurologist Dr. Sam Wyzak. He learns that 5 years has passed and Sarah is now a married mother. Johnny discovers that he has gained some psychic ability, sees aspects of people's lives past, present, and future through physical contact. As he touches the nurse's hand, he sees her daughter trapped in a fire. He also sees that Wyzak's mother, long through have died during World War II, is still alive, that a pushy reporter's sister killed herself, hinting at abuse by his hand. With physical therapy, Johnny relearns to walk, but retains a limp and must use a cane. Sarah reestablishes contact with him, but she is torn between her love for him and her family. They eventually drift apart. As news of his gift spreads, Sheriff George Bannerman from the nearby Castle Rock asks Johnny for help with a series of murders. At first, Johnny declines, but he eventually agrees to help. Through a vision at the crime scene, he discovers that a deputy, Frank Dodd, is the killer. Before Bannerman can arrest him, Dodd commits suicide. Dodd's mother shoots Johnny before being killed by Bannerman. Johnny moves to a different town and lives a more isolated life as he grows physically weaker due to his psychic abilities. Despite Wyzak's concerns, Johnny refuses further treatment. He tutors children working from home. The wealthy Roger Stewart hires Johnny to tutor his son, Chris. Through Stewart, Johnny meets Greg Stilson, a superficially charismatic third-party candidate for the United States Senate, for whom Sarah and her husband, Walt, volunteer. Stewart warns Johnny that Stilson is dangerous. Johnny receives a vision of Chris and two other boys drowning in a local pond during an ice hockey game. He implores Stewart to change his plans, but he refuses and fires Johnny. Chris, however, stays home and lives, while the two other boys drown. Johnny realizes he has a dead zone in his visions, where the future is changeable. At a political rally, Johnny shakes Stilson's hand and has a vision of Stilson as president ordering preemptive nuclear strike on the USSR. Johnny seeks out Wyzak's advice, asking, for instance, if he would have killed Adolf Hitler if he had a chance. Knowing beforehand the atrocities Hitler would commit, Wyzak replies that he wouldn't have no choice but to kill him. Johnny leaves Sarah a letter telling her that what he's about to do will cost him his life, but it is a worthwhile sacrifice. Sarah and her family attend a rally for Stilson. Johnny also sneaks in with a rifle. He shoots Stilson but misses. In the ensuing commotion, Stilson grabs Sarah's baby and holds him as a human shield, which the photographer captures on film. Before Johnny can fire again, he is shot by Stilson's bodyguard. Johnny touches Stilson's hand, foresees that after the photograph is published, Stilson's career ends, he is not elected, and commits suicide, thus averting a nuclear attack. Johnny lies dying as Sarah embraces him and tells him that she loves him. End of the movie. Stephen King's The Dead Zone was released on October 21st, 1983. The reception of this movie was very positive upon its release. It holds an approval rating of 88% on review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, based on 50 reviews, with an average score of 7.7 out of 10. The site's consensus reads, The Dead Zone combines taunt direction from David Cronenberg and a rich performance by Christopher Walken to create one of the strongest adaptations of a Stephen King novel. I agree. The budget for this film, which cost to make, was about in between $7.1 million to $10 million, whatever you like to call it. But in the U.S. and Canada, in the box office, it did $20.8 million and $16.3 million in worldwide rentals. My overall rating for this movie is a 75 out of 100. In the novel, the phrase dead zone refers to the part of Johnny's brain which is irreparably damaged, resulting in his dormant psychic potential awakening. When some information in Johnny's visions is beyond his perception, he considers that information that is existent in the dead zone. In the film adaptation, though, the phrase dead zone is that part of his psychic vision is missing, a blank area that he cannot see. The dead zone refers to an outcome that is not yet determined, meaning Johnny could change the future. That is pretty some good psychological sci-fi shit, if you ask me. This has been JoeLumb's movie review for this Friday. Every Friday, expect another episode.
No.